Hello!
To our first episode.
Yes, this is the first episode of Future-Proof Young Money Ideas.
Young Money Ideas. And on my right is Liani Yuneska, the one and only from University Malaya, one of their top graduates, well liked, well respected, and mainly because she never got caught yet. Never got caught, alright? So still very well respected, alright?
Yes, and with me, I have the fabulous, just like his style, Jason, who is the CEO of Malaysia Youth Community, MYC, which is a social entrepreneur, social enterprise that works for the youth and hopefully making better changes for the world, especially the youths of Malaysia. So
I didn't pay her to say that. Alright, so, sure. So let's roll. Earlier on you were asking me why we're starting this.
yes, exactly. I wanted to know, this is about future-proof, about the future. And it's about young people, money, and having ideas. And why are you here to want to share about this with us, Jason?
Okay, so the topic is future-proof young money ideas, and you yourself, a lot of young people keep asking me on and off about how money works. And based on my background, I've been doing things the conservative way, in the sense I usually hide in the background. But I've seen that there's too many changes, and in a nutshell, your generation, the millennials generation, right, of ASEAN, US, and anywhere there's millennials, your generation is kind of screwed, let's be honest.
Okay, when you're talking about your background, what is your background?
Okay, my background is actually, I started out in investment banking. I'm an ex-investment banker. I had an early start in Wall Street actually. I remember I had to fight with 2,000 other graduates for an internship in Wall Street. Everybody was doing formulas to showcase or pitch their way in. They were doing formulas on quantum finance, macroeconomics and stuff. I was writing my algorithms based on the single variable that never changes throughout history, human behavior. So I wrote formulas based on human behavior algorithms. So that's how I got into Wall Street. I was headhunted back to Malaysia, right? By Bank Negara Malaysia. They were looking for talents to come back, right? Because I think that was right before or during the Asian financial crisis, right? And I ended up coming back here. My family's abroad in Canada and US. I ended up managing a 3 billion ringgit fund portfolio for a local financial institution. And I left because after 2 years of doing my national duty, I decided that I realized there's something, number one, the for-profit only culture, a for-profit only culture, and also a lot of traditional organizations, well, in Malaysia and globally, I guess, but in the context of Malaysia, they are dominated by fear and lack of imagination. 2 words: fear, lack of imagination. Hence, that's why you come with all this office politics and nonsense, right? Because, and that's not the way for traditional industries to grow or to change or to evolve. Because a lot of businesses, especially in ASEAN, or can I say in the context of Malaysia, exist only because they are legally protected by laws created by outdated government statutes and rules. That's why a lot of these companies are dinosaurs, right? But as we know, with technology and with internet and with everything accessible through your mobile phone, right? And basically, this is going to change whether they like it or not.
Yeah, nothing stays the same, but everything will always be changing.
Correct, and this is your generation's weapon to survive. Because I really mean what I say. If you know the numbers, if you know what I know, and it wasn't started by my generation, but I like to blame it on the generation before me, okay? There's a system that penalizes you before you start. You owe money, you owe your tuition fees, you owe your student loans, you owe your credit cards, you owe everything, and you'll be working until the day you die without knowing why. Right?
Yes.
So hence one of the inspirations for future-proof young money ideas is to start teaching you how the system works. Right?
Okay, this sounds awesome, guys.
We're not,
which is really true. I mean, my generation, you leave university with already a few thousands worth of debt from PTPTN, and then you're gonna go into credit
you're
card.
You're considered lucky if it's just a few thousand. I know a lot of people have more than just a few thousands.
Exactly,
so,
and you end up adding it up.
That is no, it compounds. Interest compounds.
Oh wow!
So today I see myself as a technopreneur, investor, and I'm also a hands-on CEO in a youth social enterprise MYC.
I can definitely see that. Very hands-on.
We've been doing quite well connecting young Malaysians to global ideas with global brands and helping them to discover what's out there through targeted localized content as well. So back to basics, why we are doing this today is so who's going to benefit from following us weekly, and I think in terms of the lessons for beginners, right? So this whole idea is to benefit young people like you. If anyone's looking for quick tips on how to gamble, go online, the social media, Facebook, there are tons of quacks selling quick get-rich courses. This is not one of them,
like what we see in those YouTube ads and all.
I have been
Pop-up ads.
I have been requested by many people to do an online investment course. I refuse to, because that's not how you do it. Because you have to understand how the system works. However, I will do it through step by step through the sessions here. Alright.
Awesome.
And we're gonna keep people informed.
Yes.
Right? So sometimes we'll zoom out into macroeconomics, and sometimes we'll zoom into systems, templates, and formulas, how things work. So if you really want to be successful in the long term, you have to have a chosen career, yes, and you also have to have financial awareness. So that's what we're about, creating financial awareness and good habits. Right?
Great, awesome. And this is something that we don't usually learn by the book. Most of my friends, my peers that I know would be going into a crash course once they are independent on their own, or once mom and dad are not giving them allowances.
And we're going to use this, Liani, as a manual. This is one of my favorite books, How We Are Fudging Up the World. I'm not allowed to use, I think, because
We are
fudging up the world. Okay, this is an interesting book, right? I didn't write it, so I'm not selling it, but it's my investment manual, because, for example, it shows you what's happening to the world today, and it's all infographics. So not too much words, more pictures, more graphics. I know your generation less pictures, right? So, but it essentially shows you, for example, we are destroying the world by using carbon fuels, right?
Yes.
So that's why you invest in Tesla, which is renewable energy, all right?
Rechargeable.
So it's not just a book about how we're fudging up the world, it's actually an investment guide. Where's the next opportunity? For example, I also show you we're running out of clean water. So there's going to be technology technopreneurs who will come up with ideas for clean water. And they also have another chapter on how we're overpopulating the planet. There's too many people.
Yeah.
And with too many people comes pandemics, diseases. So if you had read this book, I think 3 years ago, you start looking up for these industries, where to start investing your energy, your time, and in terms of the future, where is the demand going to be? Because we want to survive, right? And that's where everything is channeling towards. So it's a good book. You can get it online. And don't worry, like I said, it's not about words, so it's a lot of pictures. So you can get it online and keep it in your phone. So our content is basically for millennials and specifically where possible in ASEAN, because we have 600 million population here in ASEAN.
Yes, in the region itself.
And we're right in the middle of China and US. So essentially our content is for English-speaking millennials who have been educated in the West, growing up in Asia, and are trying to get in touch with our heritage, our roots in East Asia. Because I think there's an increasing movement among Asians to try to know about our roots. All right? And that's where I met you, by the way.
Yes, that's correct. That's how we ended up.
Culture, right? So, and essentially, but we are still very much engaged with our Western values and beliefs because we're educated there.
Of course. Yeah.
So this is very much a platform in the middle of the East and the West, because ASEAN is usually just forgotten or ignored, right?
Unfortunately.
And we're a very important segment to both sides.
Yes.
To the US,
but right, we are in
US
the middle that would benefit both ends.
Correct. And the key word in Malay is actually Nusantara.
Yes.
Or Indonesian, Nusantara.
Nusa di Antara, yes.
Nusantara means the world in the middle. That's exactly on the map where we are.
Yes,
So
exactly.
I believe always, I tell every young person that I meet in Malaysia, you're at the right place at the right time. Right? I came back to Malaysia 20 years ago. It's a bit too early, but the timing is now. 20 years ago, they said China was opening up. 20 years ago was a way bit too early. You need the back-end systems to catch up. You need the support systems, the technology, the infrastructure to catch up. And the time is now, 2020.
Well,
right?
I'll be looking forward to hear about that, and I hope our viewers would be excited to hear about this too. So yeah, let's get right to it. Now, why did you say this is the time? Why in 2021? Why not in 2001, where everything was still growing?
I think 2021, as opposed to 2020, all right, of course, coronavirus pandemic, 2021 is the year where you will hear ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Governments around the world will be going into a printing money phase. And because that's the only way they can get themselves out of it. So what governments do is they print money. But a lot of young people really don't understand how central banks create money, right? Because essentially what they're doing is they're just printing paper, all right? So the big things that's going to happen in 2021 is governments around the world are going to try to spend their way out of this crisis, all right? I give you an example. Suspect number one, the United States. So Joe Biden, I like him, he's a nice guy, but he's trying to push for USD 1.9 trillion. All right, okay, wrap your head around it.
Okay.
1.9 trillion is roughly what, 8 trillion ringgits in
I can't
Malaysian
even
currency,
imagine millions, but
a
trillions.
stimulus
Goodness.
package,
Oh.
right? And in fact, it's gotten it approved by the Democrats, 50+1, Kamala Harris. She voted for it. So essentially, what they're going to do is they're going to put checks, US dollar checks of 1,400 into the hands of a lot of Americans, all right? And what this will do is it's going to be like injecting steroids or opium into the bloodstream of someone who's already high. But
Oh, that's an interesting way to put it. Because shouldn't the money be helping them? And why are you saying that it's may not be helpful?
because a lot of millennials, instead of using the money to buy food, which they intended to, will instead put it into stocks, investments, and Bitcoin and other areas.
And shouldn't be so investing. Why are you saying that step wouldn't be right?
It's not that it's not right, but okay. So you heard lately about the issue about GameStop.
Yes.
You've been hearing it
About-
everywhere, but
yeah,
you're not
I've
sure
been
what
seeing
the
that.
heck it's all about.
What is this fight between a local game shop and some investors?
Okay.
And it was taken seriously, very seriously.
So the whole topic here is, don't get us wrong, we're trying to encourage millennials to invest. But we want to raise awareness, number one. The governments are printing currency like crazy. That means, and your currencies are not backed by gold. In fact, I talked to a lot of young people, they still feel that, oh, the currency is backed by gold or something. No, it's not backed by anything, all right? It's just paper, all right? So it's about just trusting the government that prints cash, all right? And when they give it out to millennials, there's nothing wrong about investment, but it's how you do it, where you do it, and when you do it, all right? So talking about GameStop. GameStop is very interesting because it's about two words, social investing. Social investing. So your generation created things like social media, social sharing, now social investing. So everything is social.
Everything is related to social.
So what happens when you get a lot of young Gen Zs bored at home, stuck at home, active on the internet, and 6 months ago in 2020, the American government gave everyone $600 US checks. All right, so everybody got a check. So what do you do with it? They're at home, they're on the internet, and how much shopping on Amazon can you do? So they started looking at markets, all right? So some call it a social movement to punish hedge funds, but I don't really believe it started out that way. It was more like a group of people talking to each other, where should we put our money next? And someone noticed something interesting. What happened in GameStop? Let me do a quick 1 minute 411 recap. What's happening, okay? So a lot of hedge funds banded together, and by the way, they're all in collusion. A lot of these hedge funds on Wall Street, they talk to each other behind the scenes. All right, it's illegal. They shouldn't do it, but they do it all the time. All right, and they work together to figure out how to punish certain companies and to grab every single dollar they can out of it. Practically, what they're doing is they're destroying companies just to get richer.
Oh wow!
That's one of the things that why I changed my career goals, and in essence, I want to do something that is identifying companies based on value, investing in value and creating value, not in terms of hunting for companies like pirates so that you can actually hijack them and take and maximize like a parasite, suck up all that value.
That's just cruel. That's just cruel to do that.
Let's just say on Wall Street, the ethos or the ethics was there's no such thing as cruel. There's only such thing as whether you get a bonus or another holiday in the Bahamas, all right, in the Cayman Islands. So, and they always call it the freedom of the markets or the price valuation of the markets. But essentially, they're colluding, all right? So there's a system going on. So what these guys did was they worked together, hedge funds, to target certain companies like GameStop. And for example, if you are GameStop, you have 100 shares out there. They sold up to 140% of your shares to force your shares down. But in order, when they short sell your shares, right, they did it without a stock. That means they call it a naked short. They just sold out stocks which they don't have. That means I'm selling stuff that I don't have just to push the price down. So what these young guys did on Wall Street Bets, Reddit /r/Wall Street Bets, was they decided that, hey, we're gonna work together and short squeeze, that means push the stock up, and then drive all these hedge funds out and grab their money instead. So to a certain extent, it became global news and they succeeded.
Yes.
All right. They managed to grab funds out of the sharks instead. So that's why it was on global news everywhere.
Yes, it was everywhere.
First time in history this ever happened, thanks to the power of social investing. And I guess because there's a lot of infrastructures and platforms available now, which we'll go into detail in a short while, that were not available 3 years, 5 years ago. But the question I have to ask millennials is always, what's the end game?
Yes, I mean, I don't think this was something like a planned
Sustainable.
crusade.
No, it wasn't a planned crusade. It was not sustainable.
Yeah,
It was
should
an
be a
idea which
one-time
was
thing.
fun.
Yeah.
I think it will repeat on and off social investing, looking at the opportunities which will come on and off. But it's not. But we have to ask in terms of GameStop, what's the end game? Because GameStop is not a share that you're going to buy and hold until you retire. All right. Fundamentally, the company has to change. All right.
Yes.
In order to cope with the digital world. Right. That should be reflected in the stock. But if you just drive stocks for today, for this week, for next week, how long can you drive it? It takes a lot of money, sustainable money, to actually drive something consistently. All right. So in essence, like I said, it's a fun episode, but life, your retirement doesn't work in terms of one episode. It's a series of episodes. So what's the end game, right? So and you're gonna ask me why only now, right?
Yes, why only now? Why did you say now is the time?
3 things: internet penetration. Like I said, we also talked about the power of the internet for the
How
longest
social
time,
media
right? 10,
has
20
really
years.
changed the lives.
But I think we have to talk about reality. It takes a while for internet to reach every single part of society, up to a quantum or momentum where it is optimal. So it's full penetration internet at the moment, all right? Internet penetration is one. Number 2, easy access to trading platforms like Robinhood, which if you're in Malaysia, you can't download Robinhood app.
Oh,
right?
so
I think they locked it. So, but if you're in the States, starting a stock trading account is just like downloading an app from Android or Apple, filling your details, and they'll give you free money to start your first $20 free to buy your first stock. All right. And the way Robinhood did it was they gamified. They turned the whole investment thing into a game. And when talking about millennials, your whole generation is PS3, PS4, now PS5, Xbox. So they turn it into a game. So you're talking about internet penetration, platforms like Robinhood that make things easy.
yes.
And in Malaysia, it's not that easy either. I was trying to help the young millennials in my office open a stock trading account. Do you know how many forms they had to fill up and how many I was call it oaths that they basically have to understand what? Of course, that's necessary. KYC, know your customer requirements, but the amount of documentation they had to go through and the limited accessibility. They had to go to the branch, find parking, when the entire digital was online, right? And the funny thing I learned about getting my young Malaysians to start their first trading account, a lot of young people are already doing it the hard way, opening a traditional account.
Yes.
But if they were to have Robinhood accessible here, everybody would just do it like that, right? And so the third point, internet penetration, easy access platforms. The third, which you don't have in Asia yet, but you do already have in the States, easy access platforms like Robinhood. And the third is coronavirus, which gave everybody more time on the internet than they ever imagined.
That's a no-brainer. Everybody's on the internet more and
Studying
more
stuff,
these days.
from
Studying
cooking to investments to
to
options
health, to money, to shopping.
And some of us were productive. We learned about investments. Some were not so productive. They learned about QAnon, which is a bunch of crazy fellas. But anyway, we'll not go into that.
Yeah, so I noticed you were talking about r/Wall Street Bets. Now, who are those people that's behind r/Wall Street Bets?
Okay, a quick one. Another form one, a quick 2 minutes on Wall Street Bets. Because a lot of people started joining without knowing what it's all about.
Which is dangerous, you got people jumping into things without really knowing what's going on.
Okay, Wall Street Bets is about, think of people at frat college boys, alright?
College
mostly, but fortunately not all, mostly opinionated white boys, college boys, alright? Right, I grew up with them. Alright, so I know. Alright.
The privilege goes to
So,
you to
privilege.
see that.
Call it privilege. I'm not entitled to white privilege, but somehow they considered Asians somewhere in between. But yeah, oh well. So fun fact. Alright. It was started by this IT consultant called Jaime Rogozinski. Alright, technically he lives in Mexico City, right?
Okay.
He started in 2012. Alright. he was bored of what was available. So he was facing a situation that you have in Malaysia today. There's not much available in terms of news. So he wanted to create something fun where people could share feedback. So it's like a forum, all right? He called it Wall Street Bets. So long story short, it grew very big. The membership became exponential. And the funny thing is, there's a twist to the story. Haimi got booted out in 2020 last year because he was in a losing battle with white narcissists, all right? So long story short, Haimi is gonna make more money from the movie deals with Netflix.
Oh wow,
Wall Street
there's a
Bets.
movie based on him?
So, okay, that you were asking me about lingo, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Wall Street Bets has its own language, all right? So let's go through some of the keywords.
Okay, yes. So I've heard of a few of the lingos like to the moon.
To the moon, that means whatever you bought is skyrocketing straight to the moon. That's easy, all right?
Alright. So what are the other
popular
ones?
terms is stonks. Stonks is just another fun way of saying stocks. Alright, stocks, alright, game
Okay.
stocks, alright. So you have, by the way, Wall Street Bets guys, they call themselves retards, degenerates,
Wait.
autists. No, because they're cool, we're retards, we're degenerates, we're autists. Look, they speak with the frat boy language, fraternity, alright.
Okay.
So, and they don't like people who sell stocks because they like to buy.
Uh-huh.
So if you're selling a share, bear market, so it's short, right?
Yes.
If you're selling a share, they call you a gay bear.
Oh.
So I know, right? If they don't like you, they call you gay. So it's a very male-driven, masochistic kind of community.
Masculine.
Masochistic is a keyword, I think.
Alright.
Then you have words like tendies. So if you made a profit and you bought yourself a nice car with it or a PS5 with it, so you bought something with the tendies you made.
Wow.
Alright, so it's like the
10
goodies,
digits.
tendies.
Ah.
Not 10 digits, just tendies, like tenders, like chicken tenders.
Oh.
Like it's like goodies. No, I made my chicken tenders like
The languages they come up with, even someone like me.
Yeah, the language is a very American-driven college crowd kind of language.
Yeah.
So you have terms like paper hands. The emoji is two rolls or one roll of toilet paper with two hands. That means you're the kind of skittish player who buys a stock and lets go immediately because your hands are made of paper. And then you have fun terms like diamond hands. Diamond hands, that means you have rock solid hands. Some of them held the GameStop shares they bought at 50, went all the way to 350. They made 7 times their money. They still held on to it until it came back down to 50 or below. And I would ask them, what's the point? And they call diamond hands. A lot of them like the glory that comes with being calling themselves diamond hands, but I feel that the only realistic glory is what happens in your real trading account end of the day, what you can bring home to take care of your family or to prepare for your retirement.
Yes, at the end of the day, that's why you invest. You want to gain something.
But when you're with a crowd of young guys with adrenaline rush and a lot of beer, hey, anything goes. So yeah, and interestingly, there's a Malaysian version. Oh,
interesting.
Right.
So the lingo comes to Malaysia, and what is it?
Malaysians are, as you know, in ASEAN, Malaysians are very quick at copying whatever's working out.
Oh, true,
overseas.
and we claim it as our own. Okay.
So the Malaysian version is on Reddit as well, r/Bursa Bets. Bursa is of course our KL,
That's Malaysian
Bursa, alright, Bors, alright, Bursa
No
Bets,
brainer.
alright. Just imagine it as Wall Street Bets, but less jokes, less profanity, less memes.
So it's just
So
meh.
a bit meh, less, slightly better than meh, but still less
A
everything.
level
but, yeah.
above
Yeah,
meh.
so we'll probably not spend too much time there, but it's interesting. But they focus mainly on Malaysian stars like glove makers and so forth, right? But they have a common enemy with the boys from Wall Street Bets, which is technically JP Morgan, and I'll talk about it more in the next episode.
Okay, cool.
so-
So we have a similar platform, but it's a bit boring
Yeah.
compared to the Wall Street Bets.
So after
Aw.
what's next after GameStop?
Yeah.
So some people say it was silver squeeze, but I don't believe it's a real squeeze happening in the market because silver is a huge market. All right. It's
When you talk about silver squeeze, sorry, is it the hashtag I've been seeing around? I didn't really
hashtag
get it.
silver squeeze.
Yeah. Hashtag
Um,
silver squeeze. It's everywhere, but
So some of the guys on Wall Street Bets wanted to go into silver and they thought they could drive it up. But silver as a market as a whole is about 195 billion US dollars in size. In terms of GameStop, that stock is only about 4.5 billion. So it's different. When you're trying to squeeze something, you need to literally put your 2 hands around it to squeeze it. Silver is far too big to be squeezed. All right.
Yeah.
And besides, there was a so-called mini civil war inside Wall Street Bets. Not everyone was supportive of silver squeeze like they were of GameStop. So, but long story short, silver is still part of it's still in huge demand because we need it in electronics, and there's a huge demand for electronics going to 2021, 2022
Almost everything
semiconductors.
is electronics.
And we're at the very beginning of a huge copper-silver commodity bull cycle.
Yeah.
Right?
People don't
So-
see that we actually use those two elements for our daily.
Every day, it's in
electronics.
everything you use in your mobile phones, everything, in the cameras, everything. But essentially, it's already on the way up in its own timing, but they can't squeeze it to make it go faster. It won't work, right? The market will move when it wants to move when it comes to something huge like copper, silver, or gold.
Yeah.
So,
So we really have to understand not everything can be skyrocketed in an instant. Some
Correct.
things just needs time to grow.
correct.
Yeah. So with all of this that we've talked about, what's actually the big picture
Okay,
about
the big picture, back to how it started.
Uh huh.
Ka-ching, 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 government printing money. Paper, right? If I were to write an IOU on a piece of paper here, and I say this, hey, you know, Liani, I'm gonna buy your car with this. You go, Jason, it's just a piece of paper. However, when governments do it, it's legit, it's legal. So governments are printing money, but let me run you through a bit of history. Like I said, this whole channel is gonna be more about interesting bits of geography, history, human behavior, psychology, economics, finance, investment, all rolled into one.
Yeah.
Technology, technopreneur, trends. So let's talk a bit about history. You remember World War II or those stories of World War II,
Yes.
Japan occupying Malaya?
Yes.
Have you heard
of
about the
course.
term banana money before?
Banana money, I've heard of it from my grandparents who were talking about some money that they used to light fire with. That's all.
Yes, correct. Well, technically, it was called banana money because the bananas were printed on currency issued by the Japan authority in Malaya when
Okay.
they conquered Malaya from the British. It wasn't backed by bananas. It could have been some value if it was backed by bananas. It wasn't backed by anything.
Okay.
So people ended up with huge loads of it, and they can't do anything with it except to light fires, to boil water, and so forth. And you have terms like Weimar Republic back in history. At the end of World War One, when Germany lost,
Germany,
alright,
yes.
it was run by the Weimar Republic. It was called the Weimar Republic. They printed a lot of Deutschmarks, which lost value every day. Like a piece of bread will cost you, that's 10 Deutschmarks today. 3 days later, it'll cost you 10,000 Deutschmarks. 1 week later, it'll cost you 1 million Deutschmarks. So whatever you held on in terms of currency was pointless and worthless. Then you have real life, recent histories as Zimbabwe. Venezuela is still happening today. So
Venezuela's inflation is really bad today.
and brings back to the biggest culprit in the room. Okay, before I talk about the biggest culprit globally, all right, let's talk about you, for example. Liani, if your salary for the whole year per annum is only, let's say, about 35,000 ringgits,
Okay.
right? It could be 35,000 US if you're working in the States, it's 35,000 ringgit if you're working here, all right. What if you owed about 140% more than what you can earn in a year?
Oh wow.
And you owe the banks 140% more than what you earn in a year.
I'll be a debt
You're
slave.
screwed. You're
I'll be
technically
a-
screwed. You're screwed. Right? They will label you a bankrupt and they won't lend you any more money, and
Yes.
literally, yeah, you're in trouble.
Yes.
So the biggest
Enslaved
culprit
by
today
debt.
globally is United States. In terms of debt, they are currently 136% in debt over GDP. GDP is the sum of everything they earn in a year, and they owe 136% times of that.
I have heard that, correct me if I'm wrong of my facts, I have heard that the US have not had a surplus since the
Bill Clinton.
1980s?
No, 1990s, Bill Clinton.
1990s.
They had a mini surplus because Bill Clinton scaled down the military defense spending. All right, they call it defense spending, but they technically at war with everyone all the time. I like Americans, don't get me wrong, but some of their regime or the system is controlled by parts of the society who the wealthiest, who actually have turned the whole system to benefit only themselves. That's why you have a lot of middle class Americans who feel left out. They feel that their incomes is getting less. That's why I'm trying to do this video for millennials to tell them what's happening in the current system today.
So that we can be better prepared for the future.
It's not just in the States, it's actually happening everywhere. All right, because we all follow the systems globally. All right.
That's right. I mean, people around the world sort of worship the US dollar, and since that there's a big possibility and it's being obvious that it's going to fall and the fiat currencies are also going to fall, I mean, what should we do then?
So back to the example. So if you are earning only 35,000 ringgit per year and you're 136% in debt, and you're issuing me more paper money, I will look at you and say, Liani, are you sure there's value behind this?
Yeah.
So what's happening is now that's why everybody is looking at either traditionally at gold, all right, or now digitally at Bitcoin.
Okay, so Jason, the US dollar, it's highly worshipped everywhere. People think you have a piece of $100, you're a rich person when you're outside of the US. So since you mentioned that the currency itself is going down and the fiat currency is also going to fall, as a millennial, I mean, what should I do?
Okay, your generation is the one that will see a lot of changes as well. E-wallets was unheard of even 3 years ago, all right? But now it's like everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So money, as we know, is going to be totally radically different, right? Paper money is, and right now with the lockdown, a lot of us haven't really used paper money in quite a while, right? Usually a debit card, touch, and
Yeah,
whatnot.
for the contactless
So-
purchase campaign.
But yeah, coming back to focus. So paper currency is going to lose value because a lot of people will start realizing, hey, a lot of governments are issuing paper money and it's not backed by anything. It's just paper. And if you there's something that most Malaysians or global citizens don't see is the loss of the value of the currency. All they know is that they can buy less today with the same 50 ringgit or 50 US dollars compared to a year ago or 2 years ago.
Yes.
And they keep thinking that, hey, my salary stays the same, but I'm buying less and less things.
And the cost of living
And
is rising.
everything keeps going up. It's called inflation. When you start printing currency, everything loses value. All right. And after a while, people are gonna get wise up, especially your generation, right? With all this Reddit, Wall Street bets and everything, your generation is waking up. Hey, we're in the middle of a cycle where we're being punished, not for working hard, but being punished by earning less. But the harder you work, you're just earning less. It's a cycle. So that's what happens when government prints money. So traditionally, a lot of hedge fund managers will look towards gold, right? But even gold is probably the topic of another day, another podcast session, because gold is traditionally valued and people call it God's money, right? However, in terms of gold, it is kind of slow compared to everything else. It goes up slowly, all right? And there's a lot of stories about gold, which we'll go into the next topic, because even behind gold, they say that it may not belong to the central banks anymore because they loan it out. So that a lot of people don't know like how many times they've loaned out the gold and does it still belong to the central banks. So that's why, and with gold, it's a good investment still, traditionally, but you can't really carry it with you from country to country, right? It's stuck in the country where you bought it if you buy it in bullion, right? So that's why they've been looking at digitally at Bitcoin, currency that you can carry with you in your mobile phone.
Okay, that rings a bell because I've heard of Bitcoin. I've seen my peers who successfully made a living through investing in Bitcoin, and it's heavily advertised as something that you can get quick money, having a super comfortable lifestyle. So, but technically, what is it? I have no idea.
Okay, let's get into
I couldn't process it whenever
let's
they
get
tried
into
to
the
share it.
basics.
Yeah.
All right, Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is essentially digital currency which can be exchanged between different parties. All right. The only thing is issued cryptocurrency in a sense. It's not issued by a central bank. It's outside the power of any single central bank. All right. So it took a while. The history started very quickly. A quick recap in 2008-2009 with this mythical character called Satoshi Nakamoto.
Oh, wow.
So it can't get more Japanese than that. Satoshi-san. So basically, the real person has never been found, but he wrote the white paper on cryptocurrency in 2008-2009. Today in circulation is about 18.3 million bitcoins, right? Units of bitcoins.
That's big.
And the limit of the circulation will be at 21 million bitcoins. That means that the amount of coins that can be mined, there's a limit by design. So they can't mine it anymore once you reach 21 million bitcoins. So hence, due to the scarcity, unlike printing paper, which you can go unlimited infinitum, right? So Bitcoin is there's a digital scarcity. It's something that took a while. 5 years ago, a lot of people didn't really believe in it.
Yeah.
If you ask me, even a month ago, I still believe it's highly speculative. It's a gambling tool. However, when you look at the condition of central banks printing currency, the harder you work, the less you own, the less you can spend. That's why people are now looking towards Bitcoin. Because consistently over the last 10 years, because it survived the last 10 years, the average rate of return, of course, there's no such thing as a straight line, all right? Markets go up, they go down. But if you average out Bitcoin over the last 10 years, it's about 408% return. 408% average return over the last 10 years, right? So tell me one thing that you can put money into that goes up the next 10 years, every year 408%, right? That's why people suddenly started looking at this. If the currency I hold today has less value, I better hold something that can retain value.
Yes.
If it's not to get richer, but at least maintain value, all right? Because or else you'll find that you can't keep up with the way the world is. You can't. We have such a shopping-based mentality society, right? It keeps on encouraging you to shop, right?
The lifestyle that we
and you keep on going into debt, and your generation keeps wondering how come I'm not earning enough to buy what I need.
That is a continuous question. So just to put it out there for everyone, talk about Bitcoin and all, but how do they actually start? Where can they purchase a coin?
Simply put, you start with a Bitcoin wallet. If you're in the United States, you will probably download an app called Swan, all right? Either Android.
Is it something like an e-wallet?
It's like a Malaysian Touch and Go e-wallet kind of thing. It's a wallet.
Okay.
Right? If you're in Malaysia or Southeast Asia, there's a popular app called Luno, Luno. So basically, you can download it from Apple or Android, and what you do is you can just immediately deposit money, link it with your Maybank or CIMB local account, or you can actually do an FBX transfer, like when you do shopping online, and just transfer money straight into it. It'll just convert for you into Bitcoins. Right? And don't be surprised because the current rate of Bitcoin right now is about $47,000 right now as we speak. So if you put in, let's say 10,000 ringgit, you could get something like 0.00009 Bitcoins.
So how much do you actually need to start investing in Bitcoin?
It's okay. You can start with as simple as 500 ringgit. It doesn't matter. Or if $100 US. Just as I told my PA the other day, just get started with any amount, a small amount that you can manage, a small amount that you can afford to lose. Because once you start putting a little bit, you start learning how it works. Because you got skin in the game.
Of course, so, you won't know how things work unless you go through with it.
Yeah, I wouldn't advise you to put like your 3 months salary into it. Please don't do it. All right. That's not the way. All right. If you believe that it's going to be around for the next 10 years, it will still be here. So start simple, get used to it, and start building up from there. All right. So full disclosure, I am heavily weighted in Bitcoin at this point in time.
Oh wow! So that would mean you would know what's going on in Bitcoin. So there's a lot of speculation stories, this and that. Reviews. So what is happening in Bitcoin actually?
Okay, just a quick 411 then. So what's happening in Bitcoin lately is that Joe Biden's post-Trump United States. Right? So long story short, as I mentioned earlier, they're printing cash. So I saw this happening since 3-4 weeks ago, right after that Capitol riot assault on me. So Joe Biden announced that he was going to start bringing the American economy back by printing cash. I saw it as a good opportunity for Bitcoin. But another thing that gave it extra injection in the arm was Elon Musk. Thank you, Elon. So basically, he started investing spare cash from Tesla, and he's gonna start the ball rolling because a lot of other institutional companies, and there are a lot of companies that are sitting on cash. They wouldn't want to hold cash because, as I mentioned, it loses value over time. They want to hold something that can retain value. So he's probably the first most prominent person who went out there and say, hey everyone, I'm putting 1.5 billion US dollars of the company's money into cryptocurrency, into Bitcoin. So this started as part of his online Twitter conversation with another guy called Michael Saylor, right? Saylor, if you want to search him online, Michael Saylor. He's a CEO of a company called MicroStrategy. They, in his own words, they do a very boring software about accounting software. But anyways, he made so much money. He felt that he was penalized by keeping cash in US Treasury bonds because he got negative returns. So what he did was he decided to put into Bitcoin and as a holding company, and people started buying shares from that. So Michael Saylor became famous, but he's not the only one. And he started having this conversation with Elon Musk about December, January. And Elon Musk put everything on paper. He had to declare because Tesla is publicly traded.
Of course, yes.
Then the news came out and boom, it went up higher again. That's what happened.
Okay, so we're talking about Bitcoin, but I'm also hearing other things like what's that? Dog coin? Doggy coin?
Dogecoin. But yes, Dogecoin sounds cute, right? And I know it's the Shiba Inu, right? The one that goes, the one that goes like that, right?
Wait. So all the memes I've been seeing around my Facebook and all, where they put a muscular Shiba Inu, is it related to that?
Kind of and not so.
Like this dog?
Yeah, kind of and not so. But I suspect that Elon Musk was just trying to distract everybody by tweeting about the Dogecoin or Dogecoins while he was compiling Bitcoins. But that's another topic for next round. All right, it's just a cute cryptocurrency that started as a joke, but it's really gaining value.
Don't laugh at good ideas.
So questions that you would probably want to ask me is, should I spend in Bitcoin? Answer is no. Don't. If you have Bitcoin, you don't spend it.
Okay.
If you use it to buy a Tesla car today and the Bitcoin keeps on going up, you will start crying because you could have held on to your Bitcoins and paid cash for it instead. Alright? So Elon Musk is quite smart. He doesn't mind collecting Bitcoins for selling his cars because what he collects, the value will keep on going up. So don't spend in Bitcoin if you have Bitcoin. Hold on to it as long as you can. Alright?
I think we need to clear the air on that one because I am concerned if any of our viewers will be confused. Why should we not spend in Bitcoin?
Okay, so we've reached the timing end of the first episode here. We will speak more in the next episode, probably right after the Chinese Lunar New Year,
yes.
Alright, which is starting this week. We'll cover topics like how to track Bitcoin, what's Dogecoin all about, the Chinese digital RMB. Alright, China's issuing its own central-backed digital currency trust, the Chinese to start that first. And it will be a threat to Bitcoin. Why is that so? We'll explain in the next round. How do you track Bitcoin? And more like techno trends, like what the heck is Clubhouse app, right? Have you heard of Clubhouse?
I've seen a hashtag about it.
Okay, do you have an iPhone?
No, I'm
not talking to you.
I'm a loyal Android user.
It's just for iPhone users at this point in time. So we'll talk more about that next round.
Okay.
How to be socially connected through Clubhouse. So cool. So that wraps up what we want to cover for today. And you'll find more of us on YouTube, podcasts, and like I said, our mission is to connect with young people and to tell them what's happening out there. And we'll do this on a weekly basis and keep you up to date.
Yes, so we are going to talk more about this in our other episodes. So for all you viewers, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the news and follow us in our Instagram, YouTube, and all our social media platform that you'll see wherever our editor is going to put here.
Okay,
so,
stay safe.
Yes.
And yeah, we are PCR tested, so yeah, I can high five her.